Today I'm rebuilding the worst team in MLB The Show 24, and I'm only giving myself 3 years to win them a World Series. At first I was surprised to see that the White Sox were the worst team in Major League Baseball, but the more I look at this roster, the more I see why, because they lost key pieces like Tim Anderson and Mike Clevenger to free agency, and the decision to trade Gregory Santos to Seattle also really hurts. It was opening day, but something was clearly wrong because we weren't starting ace pitcher Dylan Cease, and that was because he got traded to the Padres just like he did in real life. At least San Diego gave us a very good return to start our rebuild, including a top 100 pitching prospect in Drew Thorpe, but having Michael Kopech as our ace really is not good. He has really good potential, but he clearly needs to work on his ratings because he had already given up 2 runs. We needed a great day from our offense if we wanted to get back in this one, but Robert just flew out to opposite field, and while this one was hit sharply to third base, Andrew Vaughn does not have enough speed. We need Vaughn to take that next step in this rebuild because he was a former first-round pick, and he has been a plus bat over the past couple seasons, and for this year, I'm going to take as many positives as I can get because we don't even have a hit so far. At least Michael Kopech had turned his game around. And then leadoff hitter Andrew Benintendi made the best contact of the game, but it didn't drop. So I don't know how we're going to complete this rebuild, but Martin Maldonado of all people got our first hit, which at least made this blowout feel a little better. It feels impossible to win with the worst team in MLB The Show, especially because we just left 2 runners in scoring position against the Braves. It was very frustrating to see our bats stall out after a pretty good pitching performance as our season was already falling apart. However, there's still hope to turn things around against the equally bad Kansas City Royals, as the tying run was at the plate and they gave us a meatball that we grounded into a game-ending double play. We lost the first game, but we couldn't panic because there was still plenty of time for redemption, and that clutch RBI gave us the 7th inning lead, and Luis Robert was gonna add to it. This was the best our offense had looked all year because they kept giving us breaking pitches, and this was a 2-run double from Andrew Vaughn, which helped us seal our most impressive win yet. Unfortunately though, that would somehow be our only win against Kansas City in several games in April, and at the end of the month, we were in dead last place. It's time to make a move, and I'm gonna sell high on Michael Kopech, as we can get a much-needed bat in Ramon Arias, who's instantly going to become our starting shortstop. That trade instantly provided a spark for our offense as Andrew Vaughn just smacked an RBI to tie this game, and that was good because he was really struggling so far this year, but unfortunately our bullpen would give up 2 runs to waste his heroics and lose us the game. My job was to completely turn this team around, but things were not looking good so far, but thankfully we finally came through with a bases loaded, bases clearing double against Toronto. It was great to see that our bats were coming alive, and before this game I took action to address one of our biggest weaknesses. It was shocking to see that Baltimore put Dylan Tate on the trade block because he was putting together a good year, so we pulled the trigger for our second deal with the Orioles, but we would take advantage of the block one more time, grabbing a solid arm from Tampa Bay. I'm really confident that these 2 guys can help solidify our bullpen, and we wasted no time calling on Tate. Baltimore's one of my favorite trade partners in MLB The Show because they have a ton of young talent, but maybe getting Tate was the wrong decision because Vlad Jr. just went yard. It's so fitting that the first home run I saw in this game was hit by its cover athlete, and while Tate did finish the inning strong, we gave up the lead in the top of the 9th, so obviously this wasn't an ideal situation, but we hit 2 singles in a row, and I was hoping for the walk-off chance, which we were gonna deliver with a no-doubt blast into left field to secure a signature win against a playoff caliber team. We may be at the very bottom of our division, but I was really hoping that a win like that could be the turnaround we needed, as no one on our offense was putting up anywhere close to elite numbers, and aside from a handful of bullpen arms, our pitching was a complete dumpster fire. This was very important because we had a bases loaded opportunity against Seattle and just tied the game, which brought up our new free agent signing CJ Cron, who hit this blooper the other way, which managed to get down in right field to give us the lead. I feel crazy for saying this, but I really didn't want to sign him, and that's because he's only on the roster because I had to make the tough call to send down Andrew Vaughn. I'm really worried about the former number 3 overall pick becoming a bust, but at least for now we're a better team without him as we scored a few more runs, and we've put ourselves in very good position to beat Seattle as Max Stassi just went the other way. They're already in their bullpen, and on the first pitch we're gonna go yard again for back-to-back home runs, and they weren't going to come back from a 9-run 3rd inning. There was no doubt that these moves were making us a better team, and this game against Detroit could prove that even more because they embarrassed us on opening day, and Johan Moncada just hit a no-doubt bomb into right field, but is it going to stay fair? It will not. We were just a few inches away from satisfaction, just like any girl I've ever dated, but it drifted just outside the foul pole, so we remained tied at 0. At least this one stayed close, but we gave up a triple, so it was time to clutch up, and Ramon Arias did exactly that with a double into the right center gap, and I felt good with Jimenez up, but they got us with a slider, so their closer was gonna have to go through Luis Robert, who forced a full count and a walk. This was a very advantageous position for CJ Cron, who knew that the game could end on a double play and was not gonna let that happen. I was very pleased with this inning, but it ended with a strikeout, so all we could do was hope that our trade for a good reliever was gonna pay off because he's the guy who could send us to extras, and that's exactly what he did. I was very hopeful that we could bring our 9th inning momentum into extras as Lopez advanced the runner, and there was no way way, we were going to strand another potential score on third base as this sacrifice fly gave us the lead. Now it's up to Tate to put him away as he got a strikeout, and we collected our first extra innings win of the video. Please drop a like if you're enjoying the video so far and want to see more of my content. I guess one positive of being one of the worst teams in baseball is that we have the 5th overall pick to start out, and I'm near certain that Steve Cahill is going to be generational, but I definitely think there's no chance he falls to us as there's just one more pick to go and the Oakland A's just snatched him from under our nose. Now I really don't know what I'm going to do, but this catcher looks really good because he has a lot of power in his bat, and as I'm scrolling through the rest of the prospects, I really don't see anyone else I like, so I'm going to go ahead and take James Walker. I also have to remember that this is a long-term rebuild, so I have to be strategic about who I draft because while someone like Xavier Goetz looks good, there's no way he's going to be good enough by year 3 to actually contribute. So I decided to go with another good hitter. The first draft is always one of the most important parts of a rebuild, and we definitely need the help, but we're going to have to wait until August to see what we have. There is absolutely zero chance that we are making the playoffs this season, and I honestly don't know if I can even win a World Series in 3 years. So I'm starting to feel like I created a very unrealistic challenge for myself, but at least we made up for our warning track power with 2 singles in a row. And then Seth Lugo would not stop giving us meatballs, which we took advantage of on this deep drive to right field that was caught but scored a run. We were on fire now as our offense had greatly improved this season, and we scored the tying run, but we were looking for more until he threw a perfect pitch, and thankfully our starter had a great inning. The Royals were establishing themselves as one of our biggest rivals as we needed that one to get down, but it just wouldn't drop. Neither side was giving an inch, and this hit was one of the first ones in a while, so I thought this could be our chance to finally pull away, but it wasn't gonna happen, and at this rate, going back to extra innings was almost guaranteed. It could not be clearer to me that we are not improving fast enough to be a World Series contender because we're struggling to beat some of the worst teams in baseball, but there was still a chance to score in the 9th where we swung and missed. It's time for us to stay undefeated in extra innings, and right on cue, Luis Robert goes yard to center field. Our superstar just took the first pitch he got and sent it to the moon to help us put the nail in the coffin. This season would be a success if we could work out of last place in our division, and Eloy Jimenez just blasted this one into right center field, and that one's going to be more than deep enough to help us take the lead. We'd eventually take the win and the series over Kansas City, but we're going to need a lot more than that if we're going to get out of last place in our division because we're actually the worst team in all of baseball. I'm going to go ahead and address our need for a starting pitcher by trading for Christopher Sanchez because he's pretty young and is one of the best players on the trade block. And if you're wondering why I'm only using the trade block, it's just because this game is so easy to cheese as it is. I also see that Matt Manning's here probably because he has not had a very good year and he's a guy who could be on contract for the rest of the rebuild and still definitely has the upside to develop. It really can't hurt us to make an offer, so I'm going to give them a decent pitching prospect and dump some payroll, which is actually going to work. And I'm proud to say that after that, we are no longer the 30th ranked team. My awful team is going up against the World Series champs, and we're down by 2, but got runners at the corners. And I'm so glad I decided to bring Andrew Vaughn back before this game because he went yard in his first at-bat since AAA. It took him just one swing to completely change this game and give us the lead over Texas. So our team was begging Crochet to finish this one out as his first out went right to first base. Winning this game wouldn't do much for us on paper, but it would be a huge confidence boost for a team that's really struggled this year, and we managed to close it out. Everything is going to change when we finally bring up top prospect Colson Montgomery, but he's just not ready yet, and it's the trade deadline where I feel like I don't need to make any more moves, but Casey Mize is available, and I just want to see what they want for him, as if it's not too much, I'm definitely interested in adding him, so I'm going to throw in a decent outfield prospect along with another starting pitching prospect. The last deal I made was for Rodolfo Castro to hit lefties, and we were looking to see what our new team looks like going into this game against Kansas City, as Benintendi batted in an RBI, so we were up big in the 7th, looking to add more, but Luis Robert just got underneath this one. Our first year of the rebuild would be a huge success if we could win anywhere close to 75 games, and that's because they only won 60 games in 2023 as Yohan Moncada watches this one fly deep into left field, but it's gonna go foul. That would have been an awesome way to end the game, but a win is a win, as I'm feeling good about this team even though we're sitting at 41-70 with 2 months to go, but all that excitement just faded in 1 second because the catcher I drafted at 5th overall was a bust. This draft class definitely isn't as bad as it could be because a lot of players like Robert Sanchez and Christopher Morgan should be ready to contribute within the next couple years, and at least the rest of our picks had high potential, but I was almost certain that James Walker was going to be the next big thing, and it hurts even more considering that the A's drafted a generational talent right in front of us. I've done everything possible to try and rebuild the Chicago White Sox, and we're making good progress, but we still need to win these close games, and this one's tied up in the 8th inning, and that was a great pitch to hit. This could be another extra innings game unless we make something happen, and CJ Cron drove that one right at the left fielder. It felt like we had made good contact all season long, so it's frustrating to see pop-ups like this one as we were just a bit late. All I wanted was to finish this season strong, and we could walk this one off with a runner at 3rd, but it wasn't gonna happen. Then the Tigers scored not 2, but 3 runs, so we fell in extras to our division rival, and I was starting to wonder if we could hit 7 70 wins. I was amazed to see that we had a chance for redemption in our next game because apparently these two teams live for extra innings and Ramon Urias is going to walk it off with a single down the third baseline. We finally secured another big win, and early on in September, the White Sox were in position to match their win total from their previous year, but they had to win a close one against the Red Sox, and this was a great start. It's been quite the journey in season 1 as Andrew Benintendi smacked that one to put runners at the corners, so all we need is one more hit to take the 9th inning lead, and Ramon Urias delivered. This could be the perfect way to end the season, and Eloy Jimenez just put the cap on it with this 3-run bomb to left field, as just a few additions to our pitching staff and a couple more bats have made all the difference. Chicago's season was officially better than last year's, and I said that 75 would be an ambitious win target, so I'll absolutely take 72. This is the most important year of our Chicago White Sox rebuild, and the team looks very different because we went out and made some big moves, and I was very thankful we had money to spend in free agency because we needed to bring in a superstar, and we did exactly that, signing Juan Soto to a big deal in hopes that he can completely change our offense. Here's his first at-bat as a White Sox, which he smoked right to first base. He may not have scored a run, but at least the power was on display, and Luis Robert scored our first run of the year. Joey Meneses was a late free agency pickup for us, and he was coming off a bad year, but this was his second hit of the day, and even though we left him on base, it wouldn't stop our offense from continuing to fire as Andrew Benintendi went yard. It's crazy how many players we've added in this rebuild, but it's all the original guys that are scoring the runs, as Yohan Moncada joined in on the action, and I think we can get to the playoffs this year. Chicago has a winning record a week into the year, and we just blasted that one back at Griffin Jacks to get aboard, so the bases are loaded for Moncada, who's gonna sneak this through the infield for 2 RBIs. This is a huge test against the Twins because they won the division last year, and Slater couldn't get this one to drop, so we stranded 2 runners on base and have to close this one out, and Garrett Crochet is really struggling to hit the plate. We really need him to lock in, and he struck out Correa, so we just need to get one more out, and this one's gonna be grounded to second base, and thankfully we're gonna get out of this one with the win. I was shocked that the White Sox were winning their division because they were the worst team in baseball at this time last season, and even though they brought in Juan Soto and Corbin Burns, neither of them had made that big of a difference so far. This game's tied up in the bottom of the 9th, and we have a walk-off chance, but with 2 outs, we failed to put it away because Rojas grounded out. Every win matters if we want to stay on top in our division, but we're playing from behind in the 10th, and we desperately needed a hit to drop as Ahmed Rosario went the other way with this one, but the right fielder just got over to it. I was losing hope as we were down to our last out, but Andrew Benintendi turned on this one into right field, and this game was tied. Suddenly, the Angels were shaking in their boots because Juan Soto was up, but he couldn't walk it off, so we took it to the 11th where Luis Robert got a hold of this one deep into left center field, giving this one a drive and securing a signature win against LA. Our lead in the AL Central is slowly growing, and it was easy to see why with 4 hitters over 800 OPS, along with a very improved starting rotation. I also just realized that we had 3 top 11 prospects in our organization, and I think Colson Montgomery could make his debut very soon. I never expected this start to the year, but we're in a doozy against Cleveland because we just gave up a grand slam in the 7th inning. That was very frustrating because we were just a strike away from getting out of that situation, but instead we're suddenly down 4 runs to the Guardians, and that was a very tough series to lose. I thought that loss was going to be the turning point, but we actually held ourselves together pretty well, and thankfully we had an 8-game lead in our division. I'm so nervous because we're in extra innings against Atlanta, and Juan Soto couldn't be a hero with the bases loaded, so they were in a great spot to walk it off against us, but thankfully we were able to get out of the inning to push this one to the 11th where Robert couldn't get it to drop, and at least no matter what happens, it's a positive we're hanging with a good team like Atlanta, as their pitcher's glove robbed us of a base hit. This was a terrible time to be facing Ronald Acuna Jr., but at least we forced him to pop up, so this intense battle was going to continue into the 12th inning, where neither side could get anything to drop in the outfield, but at least we could advance a runner to third, except he was thrown out. I'm going to be furious if we finally get a base hit, which of course we do, and not only did that poor decision cost us a base runner, but it also cost us an out, as we would have been able to score the go-ahead run, but Josh Rojas is going to hit this one up the middle, which clears the infield, and our 14-speed base runner is going to round third, heading for home where the throw comes in offline like your grandma's Wi-Fi. At least we had the lead and we're trying to close this one out, but we really could have used that extra scored run because they just tied the game. That was one of the worst chains of luck I'd ever seen when playing this game, and Topa just left that one way too high over the plate, so of course this blooper is going to win it for Atlanta. They would go on to sweep us, so even though we held a 9.5 game lead in the division, I was definitely starting to wonder if we were even good enough to make a deep playoff run. I really wish the catcher that we drafted last year was good because this is currently the weakest position on our roster, so I felt like I needed to make a splash at the trade deadline, and William Contreras is on the block, and I was willing to give up everything I needed to get him. However, I'm also going to make this move for Blake Sable because him and Contreras are going to be the perfect platoon. Then I finally decided to make the move to bring Colson Montgomery up to the show. We were desperately trying to hold on to our division lead, and this is our last chance to try to beat the Royals as Soto popped this one up deep, but this one has plenty of carry going all the way back to the wall where it was caught, and we lost. A huge slump slump at the end of July and going into August was not ideal because we were only up 6.5 games in the division, and we were in danger of losing another game to Kansas City, but Amed Rosario cracked this one into deep left center field, taking the center fielder all the way back where it was caught, and we would lose this series. If we wanted to make the playoffs, our bats could not disappear in these late game situations, as Arias' sacrifice fly is going to tie it up, but newcomer Blake Sable had a chance to give us the lead, and it wasn't going to happen. I have never seen another MLB creator play in as many extra inning games as me, as that one's hit well and is going all the way back where it's caught. At least that advanced the runner to third, so Amed Rosario could score him on another sacrifice fly, but it still feels like anytime we make solid contact, it's just not good enough. I definitely don't feel comfortable with the 1-run lead, but we're not going to do any better. So we're putting this game in Dylan Tate's hands against Rafael Devers, and that's a good start, but their ghost runner did advance to third, so we have to be careful, and that one's going to be way too far, and they're going to tie it up. This team is literally incapable of playing in a normal game, as that's good contact, but it's not going to get down, and I know Luis Robert is going to try to run no matter what. That's a grounder. He's going for it, and he is just barely safe. We're in a really good spot to add some more runs with only 1 out, but of course I jinxed it, and that's not going to happen. We really need to close this one out because we're out of bullpen options, and that's a blooper into shallow right field. I don't know if Soto's going to be able to get to it, but he lays out and makes the catch. I definitely did not sign him for his defensive ability, but I'll take whatever I can get because he saved us, and we finally won a close game, which gave us momentum into the playoffs. Honestly, on paper, our offense was not that great this season, but Ramon Arias had a breakout season, which definitely helped alongside the new addition of Juan Soto. But our pitching rotation was a completely different story because they were the reason we almost won 100 games. The Chicago White Sox are in the playoffs just a year after being the worst team in baseball, and they're looking to rally in the 9th inning against the Yankees down 1, and Meneses is going to score the tying run. I was very worried about this team falling into a slump in the last month of the year, but we were holding our own in the ALDS, as there was only 1 out, and Benintendi got a hold of this one, but right to the shortstop, who secured the double play. This is my first rebuild on MLB The Show 24, so it's very fitting for my channel that we're seeing a lot of extra inning games as we retired the side, so hopefully we can take game number 1, as we're already faced with 2 outs, but Eloy Jimenez is going to bomb this one into left center. I have faith in our breakout player, but that was a nasty pitch, so Ramon Arias struck out, and we're in the 11th where Dylan Tate gave up a run. New York took game number 1, but we managed to even the series in game 2, so I knew that the winner of this next matchup would likely have a huge advantage for the rest of the series. Juan Soto was facing his former team, and he wanted to come up big, driving this one deep to right center field, where it was going to carry all the way over the fence. We could not have wrote a better story for our free agent signing, going on the road against his former squad, and now we were looking to seal this game, which rookie Colson Montgomery was able to do with this single pass second base. Now we're only 1 win away from eliminating the Yankees from playoff contention, and the scriptwriters were definitely going crazy for this one because we have another close 9th inning game where Contreras popped this one up to advance the runner. However, there's 2 outs, so we need to make something happen, and Benintendi hit this one hard into the outfield, but unfortunately, we just stranded runners at the corners. To no one's surprise, we're back in extra innings, and Eloy Jimenez got us started with a sharp single, so we have a little bit of momentum, but of course, Joey Meneses hit into a double play. I was thinking about it, and there's no doubt this is one of the best ALDS series ever played, because every single one of these games has been neck and neck as Soto advanced a runner. There's 1 out, so all we need is a sacrifice fly, which Luis Robert Jr. is going to be able to get, as we secured the lead and the win. The Texas Rangers are the only team standing in the way between us and the World Series, but they're leading 1-0 in the 8th, and Luis Robert hit into a double play. They would hold on to take game number 1, and honestly, this is a very terrifying team with a lot of talent, so I was very thankful Walker Buehler pitched a complete game. We tied up the series, but we needed a rally, which Luis Robert is going to provide, launching this one to deep center field, and this one just barely had the distance to get over the wall. This was turning into another crazy playoff series, and I really wanted to avoid extra innings, so thankfully Andrew Vaughn doubled, and Sable got a hold of this one, but it's not going to get far enough. They were threatening to score, but we struck out Taveras, so this is a big 9th inning, and I'll absolutely take that. This is one of the biggest moments of Juan Soto's White Sox career, but I think we're going to extras because he popped it up, but it's going to keep carrying to the wall, and it is gone. I didn't think that one had any chance to stay in the yard, but Soto's power came up huge, and we took the series lead. We also won game number 4, so we were trying to give the Rangers an eviction notice from the MLB playoffs as Eloy Jimenez hit that one to the moon. We were on fire after that bomb gave us a 2-0 lead, and in just 2 seasons, the Chicago White Sox were the American League champs, but we still had to take on the final boss. I'm absolutely terrified because we're taking on Ohtani in the World Series, who just robbed us of an RBI, but thankfully this one was still tied because Walker Buehler was absolutely dealing against his former team, and then Luis Robert would hit a double, followed by Ramon Arias to score him from second. We scored a run off Ohtani, then we used their pitcher as a pinball machine to get runners at the corners, so game 1 was going better than I could have ever hoped for as Sable hit this one more than deep enough to score another. That win showed the Dodgers that we were legit as Andrew Vaughn broke a game 2 tie, but I could not give enough credit to our pitching staff for their great performance performances because they were the reason we were in this position to begin with, and going up 2-0 in the World Series was huge. Pitching wins championships, but our offense went off in Game 3, so we had a chance to bust out the brooms for a sweep, and Juan Soto just tied it up. Getting swept by the White Sox in the World Series would be the most Dodgers thing ever, but an RBI double from their hero Shohei Ohtani gave them their lead back, and our offense had really stalled out until Andrew Benintendi hit a perfect into right field to score a run. We were tied up again, but Luis Robert wanted to continue this rally going into left field, and we took our lead right back. Our bats had really clutched up, and it's gonna happen again. Eloy Jimenez delivers another RBI for Chicago. What is happening? Garrett Crochet is in to close out the World Series sweep, and it's very fitting because he's one of the only original players left on the roster, as this could be the last out of the season, as this one's popped up deep to right field where it will stay in the yard, and we successfully turned the worst team in MLB The Show 24, the Chicago White Sox, into a World Series champion. Please drop a like if you enjoyed my first upload of the new game cycle, and consider subscribing because I'm going to be posting 3 high-quality videos per week. If you want to see more of my content, click right here to see more, and thank you so much for watching.